What's going on, guys? I'm Jesus8, and today I'm going to show you how I made my most recent house track titled Let It Come to You. Real quick, before this video starts, I am not a really experienced producer, so I can only tell you how I went about and what my creative process was when making this project. But keep in mind that my explanations of what like the plugins do and certain technicalities might not be as on point with a professional producer. So let's get started with the breakdown. I'm going to play you the track first, just in case you haven't heard it yet, so you know what we're talking about.
This kind of thing. So you just gotta be ready for the wave when it comes.
Okay, I think the first thing I'm going to go over is the drums, because it's, I think, the most easy to get into and also what's most essential to giving a house track that recognizability with that 4 on the floor kick, clap, and the open head in between. We're going to listen to the kick, clap, and open head that I just mentioned, just on its own for a second. Really simple and classic house groove, nothing special to it. And from there, I just kept on adding a bit more layers. To this, I added a second open head, which plays every second of this main open head. So it has a little bit of a second layer to it. Just gives it a little bit more variety, in my opinion. Next, I added this shaker. It's actually a closed head, but I added some reverb through the sense here. Or is it delay? Some delay, yes. That's why I called it a shaker, because it's not like a single head hit, but like it kind of sounds like a shaker. The next part is, I described it as like a whoosh sound. It's kind of, it sounds like an exhale. There are a few effects on this one actually. Some reverb, some EQing to just have the mids. I'll show it to you right now. It's really subtle, but it's a nice piece of ear candy. Next, I have this hi-hat that is playing in the background and not that typical open hat pattern, but more classical. Let's listen to the offbeat head with all the other drums that we've gone over. Gives it a little hit before the main open head strikes. The next thing I added is also a closed head, played really frequently and panned a little bit to the left and right and added a little filter on it. I'll show you what it sounds like without the effects. It's just a really steady closed hi-hat, and with a filter puts it more in the background, adds a little bit of detune, I think also a little bit of reverb, and just places it more in the background, so it's like a almost like a shaker loop. I'm overusing that word, I know. Now let's get to the rhythm snares, as I've called them. I have 3 different snares and a rim that all play a really interesting pattern. It's just some accent hits. I'll play it with the clap as well because they're there to accent the main clap groove. Now it makes a lot more sense. So you really get a nice groove without the drums feeling way too crowded. Now let's listen to all the drums combined. It's a really nice groove. Not too crowded in my opinion, and gives it some nice swing. In the end, I added these bongos, which are my favorite part about these drums. I'll play it in isolation. Not too many effects added. I simply added a little bit of reverb from the default Ableton sound right here. And this adds, first off, a little bit of tonality, because with like the kick, you can't really hear a certain note that's being played with it. But with the bongos, I think you can, and it adds not really something melodic, but more present than like just simple drums that don't really have a really recognizable tune to it. So that's already the whole drum groove. On most of these things, there's not a lot of effects. I've added this in really just late into the project in the arrangement section, but I guess it counts to the drums. And it's just a little crash with some massive reverb on it and delays. Plugin is actually free. I would highly recommend you grab this because Valhalla makes great plugins, and if you can get a free plugin off them, that's amazing. So yeah, let's listen to how it sounds like. You can see the main sound plays around here, and that's where the plugin starts to kick in. It gives it like some second hit. It was used mainly for like the transitions and the intro parts, just to give it some more excitement on the first hit. So let's move on to the melodic parts. Actually, I think the first thing I started with were these chords right here. I think I played them out on a keyboard I had laying around. Actually, I have the picture still. I would put it on the screen for you guys, where I took a picture of me playing the chord. And because I didn't have enough fingers, I put like a AA battery on one of the black notes so I can click it into my DAW on a later date. So it's 3 times just the same chord, and for the last one I switched it up a little bit. I really didn't have any music theory going into this. I just clicked some notes in, so looked what sounded good and just kept it. We're actually working in D major. I found that out afterwards just by clicking through this with the arrow keys and seeing where all the notes fit into the purple highlighted scale. And this is what it sounds like. There's actually a few effects on this one. This one is an Ableton stock plugin that just generates the sound. I believe I have turned this oscillator up an octave. I EQ'd out the low parts just to make some room for the bass. And this filter is not really active during most parts of the song. It actually just triggers in the breakdown, so it's a bit more filtered and then regains its size by opening that filter again. And what's hidden behind my camera is some Kickstart 2 in the demo version I broke. But what this does it ducks down the sound of this main chord sound. So there's room for the kick and gives it this little pulsating sound to it. I will play it without the effects first. You see it's a really, really straight sound, and when I enable this, it adds this pulsation. So this is the first part, really simple. After that, I added a second part of chords that don't play together with the first ones, but a little bit offset. And this is what it sounds like. Here it's actually 4 times the same chord. This is the exact same chord, just pitched up once to make it sound a little bit more interesting. And in my opinion, it worked, so work smarter, not harder. No, but seriously, I need to learn music theory. And if we play those two sounds together, they play into each other really nicely and fill the space that's left empty by the other part, respectively. So that's already a really nice melody, but I needed a bit more. It would get boring quick. So I added some stabs that sound really damn cool and are also pretty simple. They play in the following chords. It's a really short sound. Also, always the same chord. Here, actually, I've shifted this note up a little bit to make it a bit more spicy. Just add some variation. Here, it's the exact same thing with these two notes cut out. But if we play these 3 parts together, you see that they really add up nicely and fill the space left by the other parts. And with this final stab, it's a really nice rhythm. I've heard this kind of placement of the stabs in some other house recordings, and I just had to do it in my track as well. I don't know, just some really simple chord progression, interesting rhythm with not all chords playing at the same time, but really being spaced out in their own little rhythmic pocket, if that makes sense. I have also added, this is actually playing, I remember now. So when producing the track, these 2 chords right here were actually one. I've split them up into 2 different instruments to make it a little bit more interesting. But before that, I had this pattern in the same part, and I have added an Ableton stock arpeggiator and made this really interesting sound. So for this, I have added some bit crush and the arpeggiator to turn these simple chords into, instead of drum, you have do 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 dum dum, like all the notes played by themselves. And after one another, instead of all at the same time like you would normally play a chord. So I then bounced this out and added this on top of these melodies. Let's see what all the chords so far sound like together. it just gives it another layer. It's more like ear candy than, I mean, it gives it a melody too, but it's more about like the pattern and being more in the background. It's not a main melody in my opinion. So these are most of the melodies, but I also then have this actual classical melody that is not chords, but this really simple melody. It couldn't be simpler. It's just mostly just two notes playing. And I've added quite a lot of effects on this. This one keeps it in scale when freestyling on the laptop keyboard. This is the sound. It's just a one shot dragged into the sampler. This is all distortion, echo. I shaped the sound a little bit, removing the lows just to make some space for the bass. And I've added some panning, so it switches around a little bit. Let's actually take a listen without the effects enabled, and let's hear what it sounds like. It's a really soft plug, but if we keep adding effects, it sounds more interesting. Alright, so you already see this like kind of tube sound. Another one. Alright, you can hear the distortion, like you don't have a limiter on and you just push the reds like a good classical DJ. Some slight panning. Some nice echo to make it more spacey. And then an EQ to cut out the low parts and really shaping the sounds with all these effects. It sits rather in the background. You can mostly hear this a little bit more higher, more sustained note right here. This one. You can really hear this one in the song. The other ones, I would say, are really a bit more in the background, and if you don't pay too much attention to it, you might not even notice it. This note is really, it hits the spot. So let's listen to a part where all the melodic components are playing that we already went over. I have to admit, it sounds a bit crowded, but I believe it is the only part in the track where really almost all elements play at the same time. So that's fine. It's only at the end to really give it that highlight. But for most of the part, it is mostly these three main chords that play together that make up most of the melodic components in this track. Now let's get to the interesting part, which is the bass. So I actually have two different patterns, as you can see. This first one plays in the intro and the kind of first drop. And this is actually the original bass line that I had in mind for this track. This one came later. I actually almost prefer this one. I was thinking about just letting it go for the whole track, but to keep the second drop a little bit more interesting, I reused this old pattern I have. Let's listen to the first one. I really love that sparkly part in the end. I'm so glad I came up with that. It's a really simple bass line. It's mostly like these three notes played in a simple rhythm. Also here, it's just nothing special about that. For the bass, I use this stock Ableton bass. This one just keeps it in scale when freestyling on the laptop keyboard again. And this is what it sounds like without the effects. Just some distortion and a bit more excitement. This one just keeps it in mono, and with this EQ we just remove the higher frequencies because we don't really need them, and I want to keep the bass down where the bass is. Let's go to the second pattern. Of course, same effects, but this pattern is a bit more funky. Has a little bit of a different vibe to it. And if we listen to some melodic parts and the bass together, we end up with this. Really nice, rich, full sound, and a rather classic pattern, I would say. For this breakdown, I actually added another bass, which is just a basic Reese playing the root notes of the main chords right here in green. Sounds like this. Ultra simple. Not really much to say there. So that's already most of the components. I actually have this sample still, which we haven't gone over yet. I have found it in some drum kit, and it really fit the track. First, I couldn't get it to sound good melodically with the other parts, but I've just experienced with pitching it around, and +4 seemed to work. It sounds like this. Sounds like this without a filter. Really harsh. I did not like that. So I EQ'd out some frequencies here. And also added a low pass filter to completely cut out the highs that were really bugging me. But if you play this, it's mostly just playing in the intro and in the first part of the breakdown, kind of as a addition to the crash. Sounds like this with, say, the bass. Gives it sort of a different vibe, to be honest. If you listen to the song and just go off the vibe of the intro, it also could go a really different way and could be like a minimalist tech house track. I hope I didn't catch you guys too off guard with that and you expected like a completely different song. But yeah, it kind of gives it a nice different vibe for like the intro and outro sections. It's not really melodically the same vibe as the rest of the track, but if it weren't there, the intro and outro would be pretty boring. So now that we went over all of the components except the vocal, let's go on with that. I took you can see it here, it's an MF Doom interview I found on YouTube and just sampled it. I actually used most of the clip for the breakdown. Sounds like this. Let me disable all the other stuff.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of times I find myself, writer's block. I get that all the time. It's part of the process. When that happens, I just tend to just leave it alone and do something else. And
Just him spitting some wise stuff. fittingly, I added for effects cheesy speaker. I think an FL was kind of called something with telephone or something. It's a really common EQ you put on some spoken word stuff you want to sound vintage and wise. So this is what it sounds like without effects.
Yeah, a lot of times I find myself, writer's block. I get that all the time.
Sounds fine, but to me it's a bit too present, so we add this EQ.
A lot of times I find
Sound a little bit
myself,
more old.
writer's block. I get that all the time. It's part
Simple
of the
reverb.
process. When that happens, I just tend to just leave it alone and do something.
And some compression in the end to kind of get the whole spoken sentences to be on the same level. I then made a second track with the same vocals where I chopped it up a little bit. Let's listen to it in isolation.
You know what I'm saying?
Same effects and everything.
Things will come to you.
Just some vocal chops to make it a bit more interesting, mainly playing in the intro section and on the second drop, because I wanted this to stand out a little bit more, so it wouldn't really just be the first drop again. So we have a different bass line, some vocal chops to make it more interesting, and later on even this little layer from the breakdown here that we heard before. And those were all the components. Let's go over the arrangement a little bit. You can see I started, let's make this a little bit smaller. I started with only the drums, mainly because as a DJ, first I had, of course, other DJs in mind that might want to play the track. So starting with just the drums makes it really forgiving to play it in your DJ sets. So you have some part that doesn't clash with like any vocals or melodic parts from the song before. So you can pretty much mix it in any key, and you have a really nice time DJing this track. Let me enable all the channels. Very simple drum groove in the beginning. Then starts to build the kick adds. Now this deep housey sample. It's actually off. Just to give it some atmosphere and the first little hint of something melodic in this track. Here we have the first kind of drop. There we have this breakdown where only the MF Doom vocal is playing. Some simple drums that start to build a little bit more, as well as the simple Reese bass line. And then it leads into this second drop, which I've made a little bit more interesting just by having this variation, kind of a fake drop, you could say, by not starting with the whole pattern immediately, but I have like a first kick next to a kind of silent. I added the tweaked the waveforms here, so you don't have the initial kick, just like the sub part. So it like it's kind of a wobble kind of sound instead of the real impact of the kick. So you kind of get faked out. You expect all drums to play at the same time, the normal kick pattern. But you don't get this. You get faked out.
Kind of thing. So you just gotta be ready for the wave when it comes.
And there it only starts. Just makes it a bit more interesting, just like this cut I added here. It's just something that I already do in my DJ sets, so just cutting the sound a little bit and then bring it in again is really fun and an easy way to keep it interesting for a listener. And here, this is just the audio version of these chords, so I could easily automate the volume in a nice, not so blocky way. If you used Ableton, you know what I mean. that just keep getting quieter for the very, very simple outro. It's getting more and more quieter. Now you only have the drums playing for the same reason as in the intro, so you can mix in and out of the song really easily, and just makes it a joy to DJ with it. That is pretty much already everything. For the master, feel free to judge me. I have only put a soft clipper on it. I think it sounds okay. I'll definitely get into mixing and mastering for the next tracks, but I am really pleasantly surprised with what I got away with here from just no real crazy plugins, just running it through a soft clipper. Is that nice? Let's see how it sounds without. Okay, I can hear a little bit of distortion. Just keeps it under the zero, and instead of really distorting it, it soft distorts, soft clips it. That's what I meant at the beginning. I have no clue what I'm technically talking about, but back in FL Studio, I've always used the soft clipper on the master, and especially for like trap beats and stuff, it worked wonders. And the easiest mastering you could ever do. Watch proper tutorials. Don't master like me, please. Maybe one last thing we could go over are the automations. Let's see. I have automated these chords, I believe. Yes, on the filter. It's hidden right here. It just drops the frequency down a little bit on the breakdown.
Yeah, a lot of times
It's more ducked and then it slowly opens.
writers
Completely same thing for this little special, I don't know how to call it, crazy reversed arpeggiated bit crushed melody. I'm sure you remember it. It's also just a opening filter. It gets more and more present. In the beginning you only have the lows and mids. Now you get that little bit crushed top end sparkle. I'm just throwing words around, don't mind me. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I did for automation on this track. Here I did it completely in the clip itself. This is completely standard. It's a really simple track, but I think because all of the components are like kind of special in their own way, like this changing bass line, this really interesting sound, or like the bongos. I think every component plays a really vital part, and yeah, it really comes together beautifully. I'm really happy with this song. Keep in mind, this is my first house track. Before that, I made rap beats and YouTube mixes on YouTube house mixes, from what you probably know me. But yeah, I hope this has been somewhat interesting for you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments and I'll get back to you. In the meantime, stream the track. It's out now on SoundCloud and Bandcamp. And in a few weeks, it will be available on Spotify and Apple Music as well. If it's available, I'll have a link put in the description. And see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.